Okay, so we obviously got a lot of Mage Changes with our 20th anniversary PTR update, which by the way is for 11.0.5, which means it's not coming until probably about November, so no need to panic at all. These changes you see, it's not going to affect anything for you for quite a while, but yeah, we'll go through them anyway. These don't matter. So for Spellslinger, they just did this, which is kind of a strange choice. I guess they felt some people didn't like casting Shifting Power, more aggressively during your cooldowns. For Arcane, I don't think this matters. Maybe this will end up being slightly better just because you spend more of your time in your cooldowns actually casting like Arcane Blast. So actually, I could see this being a good choice, and they just don't really bother with shifting shards. In fact, I guess this is what every minute and a half it generates. Every minute and a half it generates 6, and every 45 seconds. So every minute and a half it generates 12. So that's pretty good. I don't want to do the math on that, but that actually might generate more splinters than the shifting power, which means this is probably really good. This is obviously really good for Frost. One, because there's zero option for you not to play Glacial Spike and single target with the current Frost talent tree. And it means you're incentivized to actually cast it instead of not casting it. This tied with the changes they made to Frost here mean that Spellslinger Frost, instead of spamming Ice Lance for 30 seconds in a row, is just going to play like default Frost does in single target, like you have in Season 3 or Season 4. You're essentially going to have no variation from that gameplay style, except for some occasional orb resets, which aren't really going to do much for you. But they might give you, a couple extra fingers of Frost, so you don't have to cast Frostbolt as much. But yeah. They also gave, they removed Where's Chill, which no one should be surprised by at all. The interaction that Splinter Storm had with Where's Chill was causing a bit of a degenerate playstyle for Frost, and the fact that it required you to have a weak ward to track the Splinter Storm. I mean, it still requires it. It's going to require it until November. A weak ward to track what's happening so that you can try and precast into it and gain, extra Where's Chill stacks than just the 2 it technically should apply, was just never something that they were going to let stand. So this is not a surprise. They're going to give you a chance to get Brain Freeze from it. 5% might seem low to you, but they had Arcane at 20% chance to generate clear casting earlier in the beta, and it was just like it permanently had a bunch of clear casting charges. So I think 5% is fine. It's going to be probably pretty close to excess Frost, and then we'll just have to see how valuable the orb resets are. I wouldn't worry about us having no damage tuning on our other spells because they'll just tune later. It doesn't really matter. Of course, this does make Spellslinger a lot weaker, and Frostfire's incredibly weak right now. But I think we can just expect buffs later on. And it's nice they made Splinter Storm means a little more for Arcane, and hopefully, they should keep that. And you'll actually feel the fact that you're clear casting all the time as Arcane. Though they made a lot of interesting changes to Arcane that are going to make this potentially not matter as much and be a big shakeup. So Arcane had all these changes. They had a new talent because they removed the fact that you can double dip on Nether Precision. They just give you a buff, which makes that a lot more intuitive. Probably new players just reading things, so this is good. However, the other thing this does is it means that high voltage is probably a dead talent again, because you don't really need to generate Arcane Charges with missiles in single target if you're just consuming Nether Precision with Arcane Blast. And this also makes it, potentially likely that you might do the Sun Fury filler in AoE a lot more, where you're casting Arcane Blast in AoE. This makes it probably quite a bit more likely, because it's just incredibly efficient, really, way to have 4 Arcane Charges after you barrage. So, yeah. That and Arcane Explosion just has this issue of it's just been so weak for so long, and they just refuse to buff it for some reason. And all its benefits are kind of spread out through choice nodes, so it's just you're not going to play it. Probably you're just going to be Arcane Blasting AoE, which people probably don't like. I like this. This is cool. I think Time Loop's interesting. I mean, it's really RNG, but making it so new missiles, the duration lasts longer. This probably looks really strong in single target. And then you can have a chance to apply a bunch more of them. That's nice. It just means you could like chain missiles in AoE a lot and have this massively increased damage buff before you do send a Harmony Barrage or something. It synergizes a little bit with Spellslinger's increased clear casting generation as well. I like this one a lot, also for Ley Drinker. This might be controversial, but it no longer affects Arcane Barrage, casting, Touch Magi grants Ley Drinker. So what this does now is when you consume another precision, there's just a chance to make your next Arcane Blast Echo, which does AoE damage, then to the nearly 5 enemies essentially, because the primary and 4 other ones. And then casting Touch Magi grants Ley Drinker. So this is good because you already want to cast Arcane Blast right after you catch Touch Magi because of Magi Spark. This makes that potentially a little more intuitive for people when they're newer to the spec. Because I know, every time so far that I've been trying to teach people to cast Touch Magi and then cast Arcane Blast right after that, it seems unintuitive to them because they keep forgetting. But this will make it a lot better feeling to do that. It also means, though I still think we're going to probably be doing an Arcane Blast filler in AoE to do some of the other talents, I think it means that you're more incentivized to weave Arcane Blast into your AoE rotation, and it feels satisfying to do because it'll just do a massive amount of damage when you proc your Ley Drinker, so that's good. Of course, you'd have to take the talent, which is going to be a hard sell probably, but you never know. Good, they made Charge Orb better. It's just very satisfying talent to reduce the RNG you feel, where if your Orb Rush does a proc, you have to build back up to 4 Arcane Charges, so that's just nice. This is fine. They just buffed it so they can move it further down the tree, I guess, and they get Gate 2 and not have it be bad, but that's okay, that's okay, that's okay, that's okay. Fire, they just did some bug fixes and they'll, do some other random stuff. Fire really needs, they need to just like mega buff Living Bomb, and then, I don't know, they need to do something. They panicked about it doing single target rotation and having funnel and AoE because of Living Bomb and still doing massive AoE damage, and it's just a bit silly, right? Because they just designed it really poorly. They didn't want Ignite to be the meta anymore for Fire, and then they gave you Ignite 2.0 except with funnel, and it's like, okay, well, that was obviously never going to work out well, so great for them. And we don't have any patch notes for Frost, so I'm hoping they are doing more substantial things to Frost, just because Frost's talent tree is actually in probably one of the worst states it's been in from, like a choice perspective. If you don't know why, the reason for that is Frost actually has, on its spec tree, the lowest number of unique talent nodes in the game. Out of any spec in the game, Frost has the lowest number of talents on its spec tree. Okay. Not only that, it also is the only spec in the game that has 0 choice nodes, okay, which is not really a good situation to be in if you're in this. You essentially are by far the spec with the least amount of choice in your talent tree. And, they spent all their dev time in beta trying to make these Frostbolt talents work, and they poorly designed them because they're like, let's just make them only work during Icy Veins while Icy Veins is active. It's just, you don't want to spam Frostbolt all the time when Icy Veins is active. It's just not interesting gameplay. It doesn't feel satisfying to press Icy Veins and have to spam Frostbolt 4 times. So, again, I'm not going to... Do I really have to say it again? The Fractured Frost should just be a separate buff that you get, so you're incentivized to weave Frostbolts into your rotation. That would just be a little more satisfying, but really, at this point, Frost needs a rework. This is a dead talent point, this is a dead talent point, this is a dead talent point, and these two, while not dead, are just so incredibly niche. Most people don't take them. I like these talents. I like Frostbite and I like Sub-Zero. However, you're not really incentivized to take them. I will take them in 11.0. They're a massive DPS increase in AoE for Spellslinger right now because you can drop Glacial Spike in AoE, take Frostbite. Splintering Cold is absolutely nothing for Spellslinger because you're spamming Ice Lance. That's the only thing you're doing, so you can just swap both these to that, and it's only 0.5% single target loss. So then you lose about 4% single target, but you gain 9 to 12% AoE on freezable targets, which again isn't all targets, so it's not very reliable, but still, I like Spellslinger more without Glacial Spike, the current duration, obviously. So, yeah, I'm able to do that for some fun during dungeons. But again, it needs a rework, and it's really bad, so I hope they're doing something for it. The things that I think they should do for it, to be honest, well, one, our 2-target is not very strong. We're not really in our niche of 2-target anymore. And there's a couple ways they can do that. You can just buff the Ice Lance cleaving from Splain Ice, which they already did. They buffed it in beta. They could make Ray of Frost cleave to 2 targets, but that kind of encroaches on Death Chill's space, because Death Chill is a lot stronger than Ray of Frost right now in 2-target. But the Ray of Frost thing would fix it. One of the big problems right now is mastery scaling again. They just messed it up, and that's mostly because all the effects they added, they just didn't add to our mastery. So Isothermic Core, Ice Nova, Living Bomb stuff, all this stuff, just it's all passive damage that isn't benefit from our mastery. So we don't really want that much mastery at the moment. It's bad design. I'd take like a Frost something personally. I think I'm fine if they go back to like a little bit of a less active button version of Frost or something. I think the current one works fine. Probably the most they could do is they can incentivize you to not play Ray of Frost, and they could also incentivize you to not play Glacial Spike, and then you just keep Comet Storm. And then you play Default Frost. If there's some way to incentivize that, that'd be good. I don't think there really is outside of them bringing back Ice Expulsion, which isn't really a good idea. I would prefer if you had like another way to consume Fingers of Frost procs and AoE, which historically has been something like Frost Bomb could be really satisfying visually and gameplay wise. I would probably prefer if they reworked Blizzard. I think that's out of the saying really. I think they just add new talents and stuff, but if they reworked Blizzard to look more like Starfall, that'd make a lot more sense than us having to constantly place this. Blizzard is kind of it's in D&D, right? It's like an atmospheric effect, so it just makes a lot more sense for it to be like Starfall, not something you have to place in 6 seconds and have their tank walk out of. We already have Frozen Orb that has to deal with area control and everything, and we don't need this slow from Blizzard if they decide to reduce it, because you have Frozen Orb slowing 10% less or whatever, and you have Cone of Cold if you want to use that. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't really know what else they could do. Obviously, a lot of Frost players don't really like when they add active buttons, but there's very little they can do, I think, spec-wise, without changing some fundamental way that Frost works. You can't really just add more Ice Lance damage and call it a day. Oh, I obviously would like if they added our previous Tears Glacial Spike tier set, because that felt absolutely amazing. AoE is just disgusting. But if they did that, they would have to make Excess Frost Ice Nova actually root, because right now they've made it not root, which is good if you're not intending to Glacial Spike in AoE. But if you do want to Glacial Spike in AoE, you actually want your this Excess Frost thing to root, and that feels quite good. But yeah. So anyway, that's a bit rough that specifically the Splinter Storm stuff's not coming until November, because right now it's just a super degenerate playstyle that I don't really want to play in single target. But these are exciting changes for Arcane specifically. I'm kind of feeling like Frost Mage is turning into the Arcane of the Mage specs, and it's kind of being ignored development-wise, like Arcane was for a long time, being left kind of in the gutter, which is an interesting place to be. It just feels kind of bad that you have Boomy gain another rework, Paladin gain another rework. It's like, really? They rework those specs every expansion. That's obviously a bit ironic, since Mage just got reworked last expansion. It's just they pruned too much of Frost, so need some more talents. Alright. Anyway, let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you for watching.